First Contact's fatal flaw. The Arcsidian High Command had made many mistakes in their 10,000 years of galactic conquest, but none quite as catastrophic as their assessment of Earth. Supreme Commander Vex Thor stood before the tactical display, his crystalline exoskeleton refracting the holographic light as he studied the blue-green planet below. His mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his kind. Such a peculiar world, he observed to his chief strategist, Zira. Primitive defenses, fragmented leadership, and constant internal conflicts. They'd practically invite conquest. Zira's sensory tendrils wavered in agreement. The preliminary scans had revealed a species that had barely reached their solar system's fourth planet. Their most advanced weapons relied on chemical propulsion and crude nuclear devices. By all measures, they should have been an easy target for the Empire's standard subjugation protocols. The Arcsidians had perfected their approach over millennia. Why waste resources on orbital bombardment when you could simply introduce a carefully engineered pathogen? Their bioweapons division had crafted viruses that could target specific genetic markers, eliminating resistance while preserving the workforce needed for resource extraction. It was elegant, efficient, and had never failed. Until Earth. The first wave of engineered pathogens was released through seemingly natural vectors: migratory birds, insects, and ocean currents. The Arcsidian observers waited for the inevitable: widespread panic, collapsing infrastructure, and desperate pleas for help from the stars. They had prepared their benevolent savior routine, complete with medical aid that would ensure humanity's perpetual dependency. Instead, they watched in disbelief as human immune systems did the impossible. Not only did they fight back, they adapted. What should have been a devastating pandemic became a minor seasonal inconvenience within months. Humans didn't just survive, they emerged stronger, their immune systems enhanced by the very weapons meant to destroy them. Impossible, Vex Thor had declared when the reports first came in. Run the analysis again. But the data didn't lie. Somehow, the species had developed an immune system that could learn and evolve at an unprecedented rate. Centuries of fighting their own diseases had turned humans into biological fortresses. Even more alarming, their medical technology was advancing rapidly as they studied the new pathogens. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her microscope display in the CDC's maximum security lab, her dark eyes wide with excitement. It's not just adaptation, she explained to the gathered team of international researchers. Our immune systems are actually incorporating elements of these engineered viruses to create new defenses. It's like we're being given a blueprint for advanced biological technology. Around the world, other scientists were making similar discoveries. The engineered pathogens were far too sophisticated to be natural, and they all shared certain markers that suggested a common origin. Humanity had been under attack, and they hadn't even known it. The patterns are clear, Dr. Chen continued, pulling up a holographic model. These viruses were designed to target specific genetic sequences, but whoever created them didn't account for human genetic diversity. We have more variation in our DNA than they expected, and our immune systems are far more adaptive than their models predicted. In orbit, Vex Thor faced an unprecedented crisis. The standard protocols had failed, and worse, they had inadvertently accelerated human biological advancement. The Empire's greatest weapon had become a teaching tool for their intended victims. We must move to conventional warfare, Zyra suggested, her tendrils rippling with anxiety, before they'd fully understand what they've learned. But Vex Thor hesitated. The Empire had built its power on the efficiency of its biological weapons. Conventional warfare was costly, messy, and risked damaging valuable resources. Besides, their combat doctrine had grown stagnant after millennia of easy victories. He didn't realize that his hesitation was giving humanity precious time. In secret facilities around the globe, scientists like Dr. Chen were already reverse engineering the biological technology they'd gleaned from the failed attacks. The questions of who and why would come later. For now, they focused on turning this unexpected gift into a shield for humanity's future. We've confirmed it's of extraterrestrial origin. Dr. Chen reported to a classified UN session. The engineering is beyond anything we could achieve, but understanding it has advanced our biotechnology by decades. We're not just developing defenses, we're learning how to create our own enhanced biological systems. The world's governments, for once united by a clear external threat, poured resources into research and defense. They knew that whoever had sent these pathogens would eventually realize their failure and try something else. Humanity needed to be ready. In his command center, Vexthor finally made his decision. "Prepare the fleet for conventional warfare," he ordered. "We will show these humans the true might of the Arcsidian Empire." But as his ships began their approach, he couldn't shake an unfamiliar sensation. Doubt. The Empire had never failed before, had never encountered a species that could turn their weapons into tools for advancement. They had unknowingly awakened something unprecedented in the galaxy, a species that didn't just survive attempts to destroy them, but grew stronger from them. As Earth's defenders prepared for the coming storm, Dr. Chen made a final entry in her research log. They thought they were testing our weaknesses. Instead, they revealed their own. Whatever comes next, we'll be ready, and we'll be stronger than they could have imagined. The first ships of the Arcsidian fleet appeared in the outer solar system, their crystalline hulls gleaming in the distant sunlight. They expected to find a weakened, ravaged planet. Instead, they would face a humanity that had taken their would-be conqueror's greatest weapon and turned it into the foundation of a new age of human advancement. The real war was about to begin. And this time, humanity would not be the ones caught unprepared. The silent counterattack. The Arcsidian fleet's arrival should have marked the beginning of Earth's end. Instead, it revealed something that terrified the invaders more than any weapon: silence. No panic, no desperate transmissions, no attempts at communication. Just an eerie calm that made Vexthor's crystalline plates vibrate with unease. Earth's orbital space appeared empty, save for their primitive satellites and debris. But appearances, as the Arcsidians were about to learn, could be deceiving. Deep beneath the Himalayas, in a facility that officially didn't exist, General Maya Patel stood before a wall of holographic displays. Representatives from every major nation watched as she outlined humanity's response to the invasion. "Project Echo is ready," she announced, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "The Arcsidians gave us the keys to their own destruction when they tried to conquer us through biological warfare. Now we'll show them why that was a mistake." The project represented humanity's greatest scientific achievement, a fusion of the advanced biological engineering they'd reverse-engineered from the Arcsidian pathogens with cutting-edge quantum technology. They had learned that the Arcsidians' crystalline biology, while powerful, had a critical weakness. It was perfectly ordered, almost artificially so. Dr. Chen, now heading the Biological Warfare Division, stepped forward. "Their entire species has engineered away biological variation in pursuit of perfection. Every Arcsidian shares nearly identical genetic and crystalline structures. They thought this uniformity was strength. They were wrong." In orbit, Vexthor ordered his fleet to begin standard deployment patterns. Thousands of ships moved into position, their crystalline hulls refracting sunlight in dazzling patterns. The invasion protocols that had subjugated 100 worlds began to execute. They never saw the attack coming. Humanity's quantum-enhanced biological weapons were invisible to Arcsidian sensors. Designed to target the specific crystalline structures that made up Arcsidian biology, they moved through space like ghosts, propelled by quantum entanglement fields that Dr. Chen's team had developed. The first sign that something was wrong came when entire sections of Vexthor's flagship began to lose their structural integrity. The crystalline plates that made up both ship and crew started to vibrate at frequencies that shouldn't have been possible in the vacuum of space. "Status report," Vexthor demanded, watching in horror as his own exoskeleton began to resonate with the same frequency. Zira's response was cut short as her crystalline form shattered into 1,000 glittering shards. Throughout the fleet, the same scene repeated itself. The perfect crystalline structures that the Arcsidians had evolved over millennia became their undoing. In the Himalayan command center, General Patel watched the sensor feeds with grim satisfaction. Their uniformity makes them vulnerable, she explained to the assembled leaders. Our quantum biological weapons don't just attack their physical forms, they disrupt the very patterns that make up their society. The Arcsidian fleet was in chaos. Their biological technology, so effective against other species, offered no defense against weapons designed to exploit their own perfect symmetry. Ships began to break apart as their crystalline hulls resonated with frequencies that violated what they had thought were immutable laws of physics. Dr. Chen's voice was soft, but carried clearly through the command center. They thought biological warfare was about destruction. We learned it's about adaptation. Every attempt they made to destroy us taught us more about how to fight back. The quantum biological weapons continued their silent work. Unlike the Arcsidians' pathogens, these weapons were precise, targeting only the specific crystalline structures unique to Arcsidian biology. They ignored other matter completely, leaving even the advanced technology aboard the alien ships intact. Vexthor watched his mighty fleet disintegrate around him. The weapons that were destroying them defied their understanding of science itself. In their arrogance, they had assumed that their knowledge of biological warfare was complete. Now they faced an enemy who had taken their own techniques and evolved them into something entirely new. Full retreat, he ordered, his voice distorted by the resonance affecting his exoskeleton. But it was too late. The quantum entanglement field had spread throughout the fleet, turning their perfect crystalline forms into a network of destruction. From her position in the command center, General Patel allowed herself a small smile. "Send the message," she ordered. Throughout the dissolving Arcsidian fleet, a transmission began to play. It was a simple message, translated into the Empire's own language. Your biological weapons made us stronger. Your perfection made you vulnerable. Consider this a warning. Earth is not your prey. As the remnants of the once mighty fleet fled into deep space, humanity began to prepare for the next phase. They knew the Arcsidian Empire would not accept this defeat easily. But Earth was no longer the primitive world they had first targeted. "We'll need to take the fight to them," General Patel announced to her staff. "Our quantum biological weapons were just the beginning. It's time to show the galaxy that humanity isn't just capable of defending itself. We can liberate others from Arcsidian control." Dr. Chen nodded in agreement, already working on refinements to their weapons. They thought biological warfare was their perfect tool of conquest, she mused. "We'll show them it's actually the key to their empire's downfall." The silent counterattack had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations, but it was only the beginning. Humanity had learned another crucial lesson from the Arcsidians' failed invasion. The galaxy was full of other species suffering under their rule. And now, Earth had the means to help them fight back. The real war was just beginning, and humanity had transformed from prey to predator. The Arcsidian Empire was about to learn why attacking Earth had been the greatest mistake in their 10,000 years of existence. Breaking the chains. The Kitharan refugees arrived on Earth 3 months after humanity's defense against the Arcsidian fleet. Their ships were ancient, held together by makeshift repairs and desperate hope. As their crystalline containment cells dissolved under carefully controlled quantum frequencies, the insectoid aliens experienced their first taste of freedom in generations. Captain Sarah Chen, newly promoted from her research position, watched the liberation through reinforced glass. The Kitharan's chitinous bodies shimmered with iridescent patterns that their universal translators identified as expressions of joy and disbelief. "We heard rumors," their spokesperson, Vithtal, clicked through the translator. "Stories of a species that had broken the Arcsidian invasion protocols. But we never dared hope." The patterns across their carapace shifted to deep blues of reverence. General Patel stood beside Chen, her expression thoughtful. "How many other species are enslaved by the Empire?" she asked. "Thousands," Vithtal responded, their antennae drooping. The Arctidians' biological warfare subdued most civilizations before they could develop proper defenses. We Kitharans were among the first, over 8,000 years ago. The information the refugees brought was invaluable. Star charts showing Arctidian supply lines, details of their colony worlds, and most importantly, the locations of other enslaved species. The Arctidian Empire's greatest weakness, it seemed, was its own success. They had grown complacent, never expecting resistance from their thoroughly subjugated populations. In the weeks that followed, Earth's military leadership formulated an ambitious plan. Operation Shatterpoint would target not the Arctidians themselves, but their control over other species. The quantum biological weapons that had proven so effective against crystalline biology could be modified to free enslaved populations without harming them. "We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore," Chen announced to her crew aboard the EDS Prometheus, Earth's first true warship. Built using a combination of human innovation and technology gleaned from the defeated Arctidian fleet, it represented a new era in spacecraft design. "We're fighting for every species that suffered under Arctidian dominion." The Prometheus led a fleet of 20 ships toward the Kitharan homeworld, their hulls incorporating quantum diffusion technology that made them nearly invisible to Arctidian sensors. But this mission wasn't about stealth. It was about sending a message. As they approached the Kitharan system, they encountered their first real test. An Arctidian patrol fleet, twice their size, moved to intercept. Chen watched through the Prometheus's quantum-enhanced sensors as the crystalline ships formed up in their standard combat pattern. "They haven't adapted," she noted with grim satisfaction. "They still think their old tactics will work." The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations to come. The Earth fleet didn't just fight. They rewrote the rules of space combat. Quantum biological weapons targeted Arctidian crews while leaving their ships intact. Modified Kitharan technology, integrated with human innovations, allowed them to take control of the abandoned vessels. Within hours, the patrol fleet belonged to Earth, but the real victory came in what happened next. The Kitharan population, seeing their oppressors' ships crumbling, began to rise up. The quantum biological weapons spread through the planet's atmosphere, shattering the crystalline control structures that had kept them in chains for millennia. The Arctidian overseers, their perfect forms dissolving, fled in panic. "Launch the beacons," Chen ordered as the liberation unfolded below. Quantum-entangled communication devices, designed to bypass Arctidian censorship, fell like stars across the planet's surface. Through them, Earth broadcast a simple message in every known language. "The chains are broken. The Arctidian Empire is not invincible. Join us, and freedom will spread across the galaxy." The response exceeded all expectations. The Kitharans, rather than celebrating their freedom in isolation, immediately volunteered their knowledge and resources to the cause. Their biotechnology, evolved over millennia of resistance, complemented Earth's quantum innovations perfectly. More importantly, other enslaved species began to reach out. The Maraxians, silicon-based beings who had been fighting the guerrilla war for centuries. The Zeth Collective, energy creatures trapped in Arctidian containment fields. Each brought their own unique perspectives and technologies to the Alliance. General Patel, reviewing the reports from Earth, realized they had stumbled upon something unprecedented, not just a military campaign, but the birth of a true galactic coalition of free species. The Arctidians' greatest mistake, she told the United Earth Council, wasn't attacking us. It was creating an empire of beings who all shared the same dream of freedom. We've given them the means to achieve it. But with success came new challenges. The Arctidian Empire, reeling from its losses, began to change tactics. Reports arrived of new weapons being developed, desperate attempts to adapt their crystalline technology to resist quantum disruption. Chen stood on the Prometheus's bridge, watching as another liberated world celebrated its freedom. The ship's quantum sensors were already detecting unusual energy signatures from deeper within Arctidian space. The Empire was preparing something big. a last desperate attempt to maintain their grip on power. They still don't understand, she mused to her crew. They think this is about weapons and tactics. But we're not just fighting their empire. We're dismantling the very idea that any species has the right to dominate another. The liberation of the Kitharan homeworld marked a turning point in the war. The Arcsidian Empire, for the first time in its long history, faced not just a military defeat, but an ideological one. Their perfect, crystalline society began to show cracks that no amount of biological engineering could repair. As the Earth fleet prepared for their next campaign, Chen received a message from one of their new Kitharan allies. "You've given us more than freedom," it read. "You've given us hope. And in this galaxy, hope spreads faster than any weapon." The war was far from over, but its nature had fundamentally changed. Humanity had transformed from a single species fighting for survival into the leaders of a galactic revolution. The next phase would take them to the heart of Arcsidian space itself, where the greatest revelations and dangers awaited. The heart of empire. The crystalline spires of Arxis Prime stretched impossibly high into the violet sky, their perfect geometric patterns a testament to the empire's obsession with order. Captain Sarah Chen, her features masked by quantum mimetic technology that made her appear as one of the crystalline natives, fought to maintain her composure. After months of preparation, years of war, they had finally reached the heart of their enemy's civilization. "Remember," General Patel's voice whispered through their quantum-encrypted comms, "this is a reconnaissance mission. We need to understand what we're truly fighting before we can end this war." The infiltration team, composed of both humans and their alien allies, had been carefully chosen for this mission. Their disguises were perfect, thanks to a combination of Earth's quantum technology and Kitharan biomimetic systems. Even the crystalline guards, their forms gleaming with internal light, paid them no attention as they passed through security checkpoints. What they found in the capital shook their understanding of the conflict to its core. The first indication that something was wrong came from their Meraxian sensor specialist, Sith. Their silicon-based nervous system was particularly sensitive to energy patterns, and something about the city's power grid troubled them deeply. The energy flow, Sith communicated through their neural link. It's not just powering the city. It's synchronized. The entire population is connected to it somehow. Chen felt a chill run down her spine as they accessed a public terminal in one of the city's vast data archives. The truth, when they found it, was more disturbing than any of their intelligence reports had suggested. The Arcsidians hadn't always been crystalline beings. Millions of years ago, they had been organic creatures, not unlike humans in their diversity and adaptability. But their society had become obsessed with perfection, with eliminating what they saw as the chaos of natural evolution. Through advanced bioengineering, they had gradually transformed their entire species into crystalline forms, believing this would make them immortal and unchanging. But there was a cost. "They can't reproduce naturally anymore," Chen reported back to Earth, her voice tight with the implications. "Each new generation has to be grown in massive crystallization chambers, their patterns copied exactly from approved templates. They're not just an empire. They're a civilization that's terrified of change itself." The team moved deeper into the city's restricted zones, using their disguises to access increasingly sensitive areas. In a secure facility beneath one of the central spires, they discovered something that changed everything: the pattern core. It was a vast crystalline computer, its structure so complex it defied analysis. This was the source of the energy patterns Sith had detected, the heart of Arcsidian society. Every citizen was connected to it, their thoughts and actions subtly guided by its influence. "It's not just control," their Zeth collective member observed, their energy form flickering with distress. "It's homogenization. The pattern core is actively suppressing any variation in their population, any hint of individual thought that might lead to change." But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. In a heavily guarded chamber deep within the facility, they found evidence that the pattern core was failing. The perfect crystalline structure of Arcsidian society was developing microscopic fractures, imperfections that all their technology couldn't prevent. They're dying, Chen realized, studying the classified reports. Their pursuit of perfection is killing them. That's why they've become so aggressive in their expansion. They're desperately searching for new biological templates to incorporate into their own. The implications were staggering. The Arcsidian Empire's biological warfare wasn't just about conquest. It was about survival. Each species they encountered was studied, their biological data added to the pattern core's archives, in an increasingly desperate attempt to find a solution to their deterioration. Human adaptability, Patel breathed, understanding dawning in her voice through the comlink. That's why they were so interested in us. Our ability to change and evolve is exactly what they lost. But there was something else in the data, something that made Chen's blood run cold. The pattern core wasn't just storing information about conquered species, it was preparing for a massive forced conversion. The Arcsidians planned to crystallize every species under their control, absorbing them into their dying civilization. As the team carefully extracted themselves from the facility, Chen noticed something unexpected. Subtle variations in the crystalline patterns of some younger Arcsidians they passed. Tiny imperfections that the pattern core hadn't managed to suppress. "There's resistance here," she reported. "Hidden, perhaps unconscious, but some of them are fighting against their own programming. They're starting to change, whether they want to or not." The mission had revealed both the greatest weakness and the greatest tragedy of their enemy. The Arcsidians had sacrificed their own capacity for growth and adaptation in pursuit of an impossible perfection, and now their entire civilization was paying the price. Back aboard their cloaked ship in orbit, Chen prepared their final report. The war had taken on a new dimension. They weren't just fighting an empire. They were racing against time to prevent the forced crystallization of every free species in the galaxy. "We have to destroy the pattern core," she concluded, "not just for our sake, but for the Arcsidians themselves. They've forgotten how to live, how to change, how to grow. Perhaps if we break their connection to it, they can remember what they once were." As their ship slipped away from Arxis Prime, Chen watched the crystalline world recede into the distance. The final battle would not be fought with weapons alone, but with ideas. The very concept of change itself had become their most powerful ally against an enemy that had sacrificed everything in pursuit of unchanging perfection. The war's end was approaching, but it would require something more than military victory. It would require showing an entire civilization that the very imperfection they feared was the key to their salvation. A new dawn. The combined fleet of Earth and its allies emerged from quantum space above Arxis Prime, their ships representing every species that had broken free from the Empire's control. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, now augmented with technology from a dozen worlds. The crystalline planet below them glowed with internal light, beautiful and terrible in its perfection. "All ships, report in," she commanded, her voice carried across quantum-encrypted channels. The responses came in every language of their coalition. Kitharan clicks, Meraxian harmonic tones, Zeth energy pulses, and dozens more, all united in purpose. But this was not to be a battle of simple destruction. The plan they had developed was far more complex and far more humane than mere conquest. The pattern core's influence extends throughout the planet. General Patel's voice came through from her command ship. "Our primary objective is to disrupt it long enough for our message to reach the population. If we're right about the growing resistance, this is our chance to help them break free." The Arcsidian defense fleet rose to meet them, their ships forming perfect geometric patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't so lethal. But something was different this time. The movements weren't as coordinated, the formations showing subtle imperfections. "They're fighting it," Chen realized, watching the enemies approach. Some of them are actually fighting against the pattern core's control. The battle began not with weapons, but with a broadcast. Using technology developed by the Zeth Collective, they bypassed the Pattern Core's censorship systems, sending their message directly to every crystalline being on the planet. People of Arxis Prime, we are not here to destroy you. We have seen your truth, your struggle, your silent rebellion against perfection. Today, we offer you a choice, a chance to remember what it means to change, to grow, to live. The response was immediate and violent. The Pattern Core, sensing the threat to its control, forced the defense fleet to attack. But their movements were erratic, conflicted, as more and more Arxidians began to resist its influence. Chen gave the order, launched the disruptors. Thousands of quantum biological devices, each one a masterpiece of combined human and alien technology, descended toward the planet. They were designed not to destroy, but to create controlled imperfections in crystalline structures, just enough to weaken the Pattern Core's hold without causing harm. The battle above the planet was chaos incarnate. Some Arxidian ships fought desperately to maintain their perfect formations, while others began to break away, their crews openly rebelling against centuries of conditioning. The Coalition fleet focused their fire on the Loyalist ships, using precision quantum weapons to disable rather than destroy. Deep beneath the surface, in the Pattern Core's main chamber, the true battle was taking place. A joint team of human and alien specialists, led by Chen herself, fought their way through automated defenses that grew increasingly erratic as the Core's control weakened. The fractures in their society, Chen observed as they reached the central chamber, they're not just metaphorical anymore. The vast crystalline structure of the Pattern Core was literally cracking, its perfect geometry breaking down under the strain of millions of minds beginning to think for themselves. But the core had one final defense. As they approached, it began to broadcast a signal that threatened to crystallize every organic being in range. The process that had transformed the Arxidians eons ago was now being weaponized in one last, desperate attempt at control. This was the moment they had prepared for. The Zeth Collective members of their team, being pure energy, were immune to the crystallization effect. They surged forward, their energy forms interfacing directly with the core's systems, while protected by human quantum shielding. Above, the space battle reached its crescendo. Ships on both sides hung motionless as their crews fought internal battles against the core's influence. The Coalition fleet held their positions, their weapons ready but unfired, waiting. Then, in an instant that would be remembered for generations, it happened. The Pattern Core's signal stuttered, fractured, and died. Throughout the planet, crystalline beings felt true freedom of thought for the first time in millions of years. The change was not instant, nor was it complete. Many Arxidians, terrified of imperfection, fought to maintain their connection to the core. Others, especially the younger generations, embraced their newfound ability to change and grow. Chen stood in the ruins of the Pattern Core chamber, watching through quantum feeds as the situation unfolded across the planet. "Send the second message," she ordered. This broadcast was different. Not a challenge, but an offer. Your pursuit of perfection brought you to the brink of extinction. But your imperfections, your capacity for change, make you stronger than any perfect crystal. Earth and its allies offer you partnership, not subjugation. Together, we can build something greater than empire. A galaxy where every species is free to find its own path. The response came not in words, but in actions. Across Arxis Prime, crystalline beings began to change, allowing small imperfections into their structures, embracing the variation they had feared for so long. The defense fleet stood down, their perfect formations dissolving into more natural patterns. In the months that followed, the galaxy underwent a transformation more profound than any military victory could have achieved. The Arxidian Empire became the Arxidian Alliance, its people slowly remembering how to adapt and grow. Their advanced technology, freed from the constraints of perfect order, led to innovations that benefited all species. Earth emerged not as a conqueror, but as a catalyst for change. Humanity's greatest weapon had not been their quantum technology or biological adaptability, but their understanding that true strength lies in embracing imperfection and growth. 1 year after the Battle of Arxis Prime, Captain Chen stood in the newly established Galactic Council chamber, watching representatives from hundreds of species, including both crystalline and organic Arxidians, work together to build a new future. "We thought we were fighting an empire," she remarked to General Patel, "but we were really fighting against the idea that any species has to be perfect to be worthy of existence." The general nodded, watching as a young Arxidian delegate's crystalline form shifted slightly, displaying emotions in a way their ancestors would have found horrifying. "Perhaps that's humanity's real gift to the galaxy," she replied. "Not our technology or our adaptability, but our understanding that strength comes from embracing change, not fighting it." As the council session began, Chen couldn't help but smile. The galaxy was not perfect. It never would be. But in its glorious, chaotic, ever-changing state, it was more alive than ever before. Humanity had not just won a war. They had helped forge a new understanding of what it meant to evolve, to grow, to live. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if they too were celebrating the dawn of this new age. An age where perfection was no longer the goal, but rather the journey of constant growth and change that made life itself worth living.